Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl.
That's
I
good.
mean it too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey football fans, welcome to the Washington Command Center. Okay, so I am a Sam Howell truther through and through, and I don't hate Dan Snyder as much as most people, but I think Tom Brady could be the key to starting out our new ownership with a bang and really kicking off this new era of Washington football as an era that this proud franchise can once again command respect. Well, what better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the first, the real, the OG Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. While you're at it, ring that bell, hit that like button. It's free to do, and it means a lot. I'm sorry, guys, that sometimes it takes quite a bit of time to calculate these takes. So again, sorry guys that I haven't been around lately, but this is the kickoff for me talking through a ton of off-season scenarios about all the free agents, the draft prospects we should take, breaking them all down and getting you acquainted with the guys that I like and how they would help the team and all that. But I wanted to start it all out with one that could lead to huge immediate impact. Now, I don't think this is the best for long-term success, even though it doesn't quite hurt it. But I think it makes us instant Super Bowl contenders. And it starts with signing the GOAT, Tom Brady. Now, everybody might think Brady is cooked after the season he just had, but he's had a rough season emotionally too. Plus, his team was kind of a shell of what it has been, and it didn't inspire much confidence in him, which showed in Tom's game. If we get him here and reignite that hungry Brady, build him a line to match all of our amazing playmakers, he should have no problem tapping into that Brady magic. And just keep in mind, cooked Brady last season still threw for 4,639 yards, which was still his fifth best yardage season of his career, so it's not like he was that far off. And he still snuck into the playoffs on his cooked year. And I know he had a big dip in scoring this year, but honestly, it was pretty much on par with his last season in New England. So, I mean, we saw how quickly he turned that all around with a change of scenery when he got to Tampa Bay. And you only got to go back to last season to where he put up, career best passing yardage of 5,316 yards and his second highest touchdown total of his career at 43. Yes, it was the first season with the extra game, but it was still super impressive. He is also at the point where he is just straight up trophy hunting right now. So he played for $15 million last year. I mean, that's less than Heineke is projected to make. If we can bring in the GOAT for that, it is a no-brainer. His drive, determination, experience can elevate this entire organization. Think about how Chase and everybody rallies for Taylor. Now imagine Tom Terrific leading the charge. Even if he doesn't personally carry us across the finishing line to hoisting the Lombardi, he still has tons to offer us. And he could be a key contributor even if he's not personally throwing the touchdowns at the end of the season. But, you know, first off, like his contributions, you got the long-term effect he'll have on Sam Howell, you know? Everything he teaches him, the experience he can share, you know, who knows? You know, everybody's out there crowning Brock Purdy Brady 2.0, but maybe Brady, as a mentor, could pass that baton to Sam as, you know, the next day 3 GOAT. He's, you know, he's got what he can do on the field too. You know, Brady, of course, is going to do Brady things, but then he's got the motivation. He's going to bring the entire team, the mentorship. But even with all of that, most important, I believe, if, you know, his move to Tampa Bay taught us anything, is that he doesn't come alone. Everybody wants to play with Brady. He's a legend. He's a motivator. And most importantly, he gets rings. So Brady coming here probably makes Payne's deal way friendlier. Plus, he has 3 friends that are currently free agents, all in spots we desperately need to fill. And they're the kind of talent that puts this team over the top. Now, if we did some crazy cap gymnastics, we might be able to pay them without getting Brady, but we'd probably have to overpay him. With Brady, I can almost guarantee that they'll come with a considerable discount, especially with 3 of them being his former teammates. If we trim all the fat out of the roster, sure, we can get up to close to 70 mil. You know, you take 20 mil off the top to pay Payne. And like I said, with Brady on board, you know, because things like rings get more realistic, it's probably cheaper. So if Brady's making 15, you give Payne 20, maybe a little less. And who knows, you know, Brady himself might be willing to sign for less. Especially for the fact that we could let him have some control in picking of the offensive coordinator and the offense in general. So with Brady on board, we're going to have all those offensive coordinators that were like, nah to us, tripping over themselves to get to us now. So between Brady, Payne, and his friends, we would need to save between 2 and 4 off these guys' market values to handle all the draft signings with the draft strategy I'm going to talk about here. So I think Brady could talk his friends into chiseling off $4 million amongst 3 players. But yeah, we really don't need weapons. So with Tom coming here, bringing the guys that he would need to make this team complete, his current teammates that I think that he could bring along that we would need the most would be free agent cornerback Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, linebacker Levante David, who's a free agent, and former Patriot teammate, offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn. All free agents. With Wynn, we get an upgrade in the quality and versatility at offensive line. And he had a down season last year, but he's just turning 27, so he's coming into his prime as an offensive lineman. He'd be a great upgrade over Leno. Plug him into a guard spot if we need it, and keep, you know, well, we couldn't really keep Leno because of the money, but you know what I'm saying. After him, Levante David, even at his age, would provide a massive upgrade at the linebacker position and a lot of stability and experience for Jamin Davis to tap into. He's still playing at an elite level. He's coming off one of his best seasons in years. he'd give the same boost to the defense that Brady's given to the offense. And then finally, the one guy out of all of them that I think we should be targeting no matter what in free agency, Brady or not, and that's Jamel Dean. He's a freak athlete cornerback who has, he was mostly a press man type of guy early on, but he developed into one of the best zone coverage cornerbacks in the league this last season. And he's a guy that would fit our scheme perfectly, give us an elite cornerback one that we're kind of missing. He's only 26 years old, so we should be able to expect that quality of play for the next 4 years. And he's the one guy out of all of them, I think, like I said, we should sign him long term. Everybody else gets a short deal. Jamel Dean gets the long-term contract. So like I said, chisel out $4 million somewhere in there to cover the draft class. And this is my version of an all-in year with Tom Brady. So with those three, I think the 1 year deal, like I said, for everyone, we're not massively overextending ourselves. We're not trading away picks for high-priced players. We're getting some reasonably priced players in free agency because of Tom's help. And it doesn't narrow down our window of success like, the Ram strategy does. So the other part of this all in, I think, is turning future picks into picks this year. I think this is a strategy Ron should consider even without Brady. But with Brady, these, 3 free agents on board, and this possibly being Ron's last chance, I think he should tap into those picks and roll the dice on himself. Every coach and GM is allowed to trade their future picks up to 3 years in advance. And that rule was put into place for exactly this situation that Ron's in now. A guy that's probably losing his job and an owner selling the team so they can't screw the next guy over too bad. But that's why the rule's in place. But you're still allowed 3 years worth of picks in advance, 21 picks. I say Ron cashes them in, gets creative in the draft to give himself as many picks in the first 3 rounds as possible. That's the cheapest way to add a huge amount of starter quality talent to the team. And there's nobody that's ever really done that to the level I'm suggesting, but I think it makes total sense with where we have our team at right now. So we're kind of in the middle of these COVID affected drafts. So we could end up with some of those super experienced 6-year senior offensive linemen out there, the kind of plug and play guys that are in the draft. All those guys are going to be like there in the second round, early third. We could get them. And we know Ron loves those type of guys, those plug and play senior type guys. That's what we got all those guys in this draft. So we have another draft with that. And let's go ahead and get into this strategy I'm talking about. We're going to do a mock draft with that same strategy. And starting out, I think we trade back. We trade back here and get extra ammo to add to the pool so that we can move up into more day 2 picks along with those futures. But yeah, this is the perfect draft for me. I think we got cornerback taken care of. So after trading back, I took my favorite prospect here, and we traded back twice, built up some ammo, trading some futures and such. But this is kind of a luxury pick after, Levante David and Dean kind of finished off our defense. We get the icing on the cake here with Antonio Johnson Jr. from Texas A&M. Like I said, it's a luxury pick, but he still has the potential to take our defense to a whole nother level. This guy, he boosts the secondary and the linebacking core. He can play safety at every position. This guy is the absolute perfect nickel prospect, and he's everything I loved about Jalen Petrie in the last draft, mixed with that Kyle Hamilton-like size that Petrie was missing, with, smoother hips than, out of the slot than Hamilton. That's kind of what he was missing. And he's possibly an even better athlete. So he's 6'3". He's got all that ability out of the slot with his smooth hips. He's got willingness, to stick his nose into the backfield and break downhill on ball carriers to crush the run game, and as a blitzer. Just imagine an amalgam of what Landon Curl and Jamin Davis both do as the Buffalo position, but with Ben St. Juice's size. That's basically what Antonio Johnson is. And he'd give us versatility with Cam and Defoe to disguise where everybody's going, since all three of them can play all three spots. But I think Johnson, you just kind of plug him in at nickel with Cam and Defoe behind him, and it would just make our base godly. So after him, moving away from the luxury type pick that he was to fixing this offensive line with my favorite offensive lineman in the draft, 6'5", 315-pound Oklahoma offensive tackle Anton Harrison. This guy gets dinged by most reports for play strength, but I don't really see that in his tape. His agility, adds to his ability to seal, rotate, to climb up and block, combo block. He's just smooth. His movement is so smooth. He's my favorite offensive tackle prospect in the draft. But I think this guy would actually be better served because of his size and how the NFL is kind of trending to those bigger guys. I think it'd be even better to slide him into left guard, especially because we got Wynn. Slide him into left guard, where I think he's immediately an elite level left guard. So bring Harrison in. Maybe one day he moves out there to left tackle, but right away we plug him into left guard and got a Pro Bowl caliber starter there. After that, we go into another one of those luxury picks, one of those extra picks we're trading for there. Even though, some people would argue that this position is a necessity, but definitely a heck of a lot more important with Tom Brady in town. Like, this is, I feel pretty confident in our tight ends, once we get a new offensive coordinator in there. But even with all the talent we have, and with, most teams in the NFL don't have a rare tight end specimen. So this guy just gives us something that nobody else will have, and that's Georgia's Darnell Washington. This guy's an absolute monster. He's 6'8", 270 pounds. You'll hear all the platitudes about him being the sixth offensive lineman, which is absolutely true. Pairing an improved offensive line along with a 2 tight end set of Washington and Bates, along with my recommendation that we move Armani Rogers from tight end to replace Cam Sims, as a big run blocking wide receiver. That would make our heavy packages unstoppable. To top it all off, Washington's athleticism is pretty legit. He's got an insane catch radius. He's got some circus-like catch ability. And aside from all the great stuff he does as a blocker, which is his selling point, it gives Brady a young, healthy version of what he's been able to lean on in the past with Gronk. I mean, this guy, the build, everything like that, it's a lot like Gronk. I don't know, his route running and everything's not quite like that, but this guy moves fast in a straight line, and he's humongous. So, Brady's used to having that with Gronk. We give him the new version. So, after that, we go back to elevating our offensive line and back to our own pick in the second round here. The business of massive improvements, and we're going to get a plug-and-play center here at the top of the draft. Like I said, legit plug-and-play guy, 6-year senior, John Michael Schmitz. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. He can do all the things you need from a center at a dependably high level. He's just an ox in the middle of the offensive line with all the refined technique you'd expect from a 6-year prospect. This is a pick you make and not think twice about it. With this pick too, we restructure Chase Roullier and have one of the best backup centers in the NFL. Because with Roullier, you only save $1 million between cutting and restructuring him. So just restructure him, make him the backup, and let John Michael Schmitz take over. So there, the depth is already better. We got a new starter, and we keep Chase on for when he can play. Now to the third of our extra picks. So this is pick 5, I think. Another huge piece for the offensive line, and I mean huge. The second Ohio State offensive tackle, DeJuan Jones. This guy's massive at 6'8", 360 pounds. He moves people off the ball. He's agile enough to be a huge boost in the run game. He's got all the length, power, and sheer size to dominate as a run blocker, as a pass blocker. All you really need to know is that this guy's drawing comparisons to Orlando Brown, who was a third-rounder himself, who's about to break somebody's bank. He's about to get paid this year, but Jones is getting projected somewhere in this late second, early third area, like Brown was. So we trade up, make sure we can get into that area, pony up a future if we got to swipe a guy like this at the end of the second. It's hard to call a player with such a rare blend of size, functional agility, and movement. It's hard to call that guy a reach, especially at such an important position of need. But we got to do what we got to do to make sure we land this guy too. Next, we got to beat the range again. This is another pick that's been traded for. Maybe this, though, is from trading back in the first. This is kind of where we end up. But regardless, we need another pick in this range. Use the futures if you got to. But the second offensive tackle here. And it blows my mind that the consensus and PFF, of all places, have him in this range. But, he's one of the highest graded offensive linemen in the draft. He's actually the second highest graded tackle in college football. That's Blake Freeland from BYU. He's 6'8", 315 pounds, a little slimmer than Jones, and he is a super smooth mover, great agility. He's a guy that legitimately moves like a tight end in space. You hear that about tackles a lot. This guy legitimately does. Good combo and good reach blocker. My comparison for this guy is Lane Johnson from a tool standpoint. He's just not as nasty of a person, I think he needs to work on his hands a little bit, and that's pretty much it. And this guy can be an elite offensive tackle. Like, Blake Freeland is massively slept on in this draft. After him, to make up for the lack of nasty and the rough technique, with as much violence and polish as you'll find in this offensive line class, USC's guard / right tackle, he could do it all, Andrew Voorhees, 6'6", 335 pounds. This dude's another monster, and he's got that mean streak that coaches love. He's the 10th highest graded offensive guard in college football, the 3rd in this draft. He's another 6-year senior that'll plug right in and dominate from day one, and definitely worth whatever we got to give to get him, to land that spot, somewhere in the early 3rd round, that extra early 3rd round pick. But with him, all the necessities are out of the way. It's time to add some depth, We got the whole O-line covered after that pick. So bringing in Tom comes with the hopes that he's not completely cooked. And while he seems to kick Father Time in the nuts and take his lunch every year before the season starts, you want to make things as easy as possible for him. The protection is the biggest way. Comforting giant catch radius tight end is another. The next thing that makes it easier is Ron's commitment to the run game. B-Rob is getting better and better. I think Gibby will take over JD's role as the 3rd down back. He finished his transformation to the perfect 3rd down back last season. Massively upgrading his pass protection to go along with his receiving and all of his playmaking abilities. So, after that, we add a uniquely different type of weapon to B-Rob and Gibby with running back from Texas A&M, 5'9", 185-pound, Devin Achane. Now, some of you might moan at another 3rd round running back, but this dude adds a whole other wrinkle to the backfield. Achane will step onto our team of speedsters and be the fastest guy and the shiftiest guy from the start. He's like McKissick build-wise, but with insane speed, agility, and balance. He's not going to trip over his own feet like JD does. Sorry, JD. But he's also a dangerous receiving threat, and to top it all off, he's an awesome kick returner too. So he's got multiple ways to boost this roster. And JD, if you haven't realized yet, JD's gone. We're going to have to move on from him and replace him here with Achane. So, on to the next guy, showing the defense some love and keeping us from needing the John Bostics or David Mayos of the world, and making sure our linebackers don't get burnt in coverage. We're going to take Purdue's linebacker, Jalen Graham, here. He's not really getting any love, but he's a 6'3", 230-pound, former safety turn linebacker, fast, great in coverage, ball skills, good at reading the quarterbacks, quick to trigger and come downhill against the run. He's a good blitzer, just a well-rounded modern NFL coverage type linebacker with a great set of tools. He's more like a big extra safety on the field that can stand up to the run. So more linebacker help. After that, excuse me, if you groaned for Achan, you're going to groan twice as loud now. But with Ron's commitment to the run, we saw B-Rob and Gibby both a little ragged by the end of the regular season. If we're going to the Super Bowl with Brady, we need to keep those guys fresh while maintaining the effectiveness of our run game. You know, Patterson and Williams have been okay, but below the quality that we kind of expect out of the run game. And as rounded as Achan is, we still need a guy to shoulder a serious load in case B-Rob or Gibby get hurt. You know, we saw how the offense looked before B-Rob came back and got up to speed. And that wasn't all on Carson. It just, the offense didn't work as well without a strong running presence. Even if we're getting a new offensive coordinator, it's still not going to look as well. So, the fourth piece of our committee, you know, is high talent and low mileage. The other Texas running back, 6'2", 223 pounds, Roschon Johnson. This guy, another absolute beast. Completely rounded running back. He can do it all. He could be a bell cow back, you know, all on his own if needed. He's been great at working in a tandem in Texas, and he knows how to maximize his touches. You know, he averaged 6 yards a carry, and he racked up 500 yards behind generational running back Bijan Robinson. Seriously, this guy would have been 1,000-yard back anywhere else. But playing behind Bijan means we get a high talent, low mileage player. And he's ready to prove himself. And I think he's the perfect complement and, you know, to complete our committee. The running back group just looks absolutely nasty after that. And finally, our last pick to help us fill out a Super Bowl worthy roster. And I went with a local defensive Swiss Army knife here. I'm not sure he's declared, but he is a senior and he is listed in PFN's simulator. But if he has declared, I want to go with 6'2", 210 pound Navy linebacker / safety / striker John Marshall. I think he's the perfect kind of high energy, high character, high IQ player that could end up working himself into an early starting role and maybe making the difference in a clutch situation somewhere along the way this season. And I know 210 pounds sounds undersized for a linebacker, but the NFL is basically trending that way. Ron's basically trying to get as many safeties on the field as possible. So John Marshall was a perfect fit. This guy could be the perfect mirror for our first rounder, Antonio Johnson, if Ron wanted to run like a big dime type package, because Marshall is legitimately good at every phase. He's an absolute heat-seeking missile against the run. You know, usually killing it in the backfield. He's awesome at blitzing the quarterback. He's a former wide receiver coming out of high school, and he's very natural in coverage, and he knows what to expect, and he makes plays there. You really don't see these military schools get taken seriously. The players get taken seriously. But with Andre Carter set to be one of the earliest military school guys drafted in history, I think Marshall is definitely worth being selected somewhere within the draft, you know, even if it is later with our last pick here. I know that he has like a rare usage type, and that can make teams shy away from him, even more on top of the, service school. But that type of usage would fit very well in our defense. Really it's a lot like how Ron used Landon Collins in the nickel. But he's just a lot more competent in coverage. So if you're still not excited or convinced about Marshall here, just listen to this guy's stat line from this season alone. He had 96 tackles. This guy absolutely flies to the ball. 20 of those tackles were for a loss. 20 TFLs, because he reads the quarterback, the offense. He triggers instantly, and he gets there early. He had 12 sacks. Like I said, this guy is a missile that just knifes through gaps and gets to the quarterback. He had 7 pass deflections and 1 interception. The guy's got ball skills and coverage ability as a former wide receiver. Along with all that, he had 2 forced fumbles because he's just a playmaker. So, that's John Marshall. Love the guy. So that wraps up the draft. Let's talk about how I think the roster would look with this all-in Brady situation. So, starting on Brady's side of the ball with that massive overhaul to the offensive line. Start out in the middle here, and John Michael Schmitz starting at center. 6-year guy. Like I said, plug and play means plug and play. Even though, we made a lot of moves for the build, we still managed to keep Chase Roullier by restructuring him. And probably the best backup center in the NFL now. At the guard spot, converting, our Washington native left tackle, Anton Harrison, to left guard, just kicking him inside there, where I think he's instantly a Pro Bowler. Then over at right guard, finally, replacing Brandon Sheriff for real with Andrew Voorhees, another plug-and-play guy, 6-year senior, that's going to plug and play. He should be a massive boost there, too, over what we had this year. Cosme's still holding it down over right tackle while, DeJuan Jones develops a little bit. Then, I don't know what we're doing. Maybe DeJuan Jones ends up just being the Cornelius Lucas of the team. Maybe he pushes Cosme to being the Cornelius Lucas of the team. Who knows? A lot of talent at tackle now. Brady's first free agent buddy, Isaiah Wynns, holding down left tackle just for now, but who knows for how long. Blake Freeland is nipping at his heels. If he misses a game, he could lose his job because these young guys are talented guys, and it's not going to take long before they're high-quality starter level. And Chris Paul, still there in a backup role. He showed enough to actually stick with the team, which is more than I could say for a lot of the guys we let go here. He looked pretty good, but all these other players are just higher caliber prospects. So even though he's got a year more experience, I think they'd beat him out pretty easily. The roster's got massively cheaper, moving on from Leno, Lucas, Norwell, and Charles. While getting a massive influx of talent, I think it's going to be a way better offensive line in this strategy here. The wide receiver group basically stays the same, the only difference being with the loss of Cam Sims and the addition of Darnell Washington. I think the best way to get use out of Armani Rogers is to move him to wide receiver. He's only like 220 pounds. Yeah, put him over there. He's developed a bit as a blocker, which is great for us to now have a big wide receiver that can run and run block. So if, we put John Bates and Washington out to one side and then Rogers out wide, man, we could greatly improve our swings, sweeps, screens, all the things we've kind of floundered on, you know, with the stretch plays, all that stuff would get massively better. And now that I mentioned at tight end, we're putting Darnell at tight end 1, Bates at tight end 2, Logan, who I considered moving on from, but we don't really save that much. Plus, he's really a dependable catcher, a pass catcher at least. So he still just made the team. And then that leaves Turner coming off the bench. Tight ends are important to the run game too. So, 4 of them active. Hodges will be competing against Milne for that last offensive roster spot. Tight end 4 versus wide receiver 6 / punt returner only, because with A-Chain, he's not doing the kick returns anymore, so I don't know how much value Milne would actually have. So our running back committee is nasty, and it perfectly is complemented by its depth. It's going to be dominant. We got Brady. Everybody's going to be fresh. The depth is beautiful. We got Sam Howell backing him up, learning from the GOAT. Everything's great on the offensive side of the ball here. Over on the defensive side of the ball, Payne's getting paid. So D-line, everything is as you expected. Ridgeway and Mathis in the rotation. And things are just as strong as when we had Ioannidis and Settle here. Obato's a free agent. Sucks to let him go. But Benning Puteo is still under contract, and he showed something in the last game. Holding out hope that Shaka Toney finally gets some linebacker work. But if not, still, he's good DN depth. The more interesting addition here is at cornerback with our biggest free agent addition, outside of Tom Brady, of course. Jamel Dean moving to cornerback 1. Benjamin St. Juste to cornerback 2. Maybe a little surprising to you guys is the fact that Fuller is still here. I think we make up a lot of cap everywhere else with this draft, moving on from people, and we can keep him because you can never have too much quality cornerback depth. I think Tariq Castro-Fields, who is a prospect I really liked in his last draft, when he's healthy next year, he can add some quality depth to the cornerback group. Christian Holmes, hopefully he takes another step up. We have our other first-round pick here, Antonio Johnson, plugging into that nickel or slot. I have our last pick, John Marshall, plugged in behind him, but it's most likely he'd be getting reps on special teams or a linebacker. But like I said, when I was talking about the draft there, hey man, he could be a good dime backer too. Brady's last buddy, Levante David, taking over Cole Holcomb's spot. His XP should boost the defense all around. I mean, imagine having another guy out there that can read everything and get everyone into place like Cam does. Just 2 guys that completely know everything that's going on. Jalen Graham and Khaleke Hudson taking over for Bostic and Mayo. And the safety group is how it is. Being one of the strengths of the team. I don't care what anybody says. This is a Super Bowl roster. But let me know what you think of the strategy anyway, bringing Tom Brady in. Even bringing in Tom Brady mainly because of what he can do with the free agent additions. Even though I think the GOAT gets us a ring. Even if he does dip a bit. This whole team here with this strategy could end up, being a type of like Peyton Manning Broncos type team where we carry the GOAT across the finish line at the end. Who knows? The best part is this is the perfect team in place for the next season after Tom Brady rides off into the sunset with a feather in his cap because he managed to get Washington their first Super Bowl as the Commanders. Once he's gone, this is the perfect roster for Sam Howell to continue in these new winning ways in this new era of Washington football and make it an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. And there's no better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. Thanks for checking out the video. I know this is crucially long. Sorry I haven't been around. Please ring that bell, hit that like button, and if you stayed this long, I definitely love y'all. Peace.